What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Kev the Dev, or my channel. I'm Kev the Dev. I want to start a series on going from nothing to deploying a web application to the cloud using continuous delivery. That's a lot of stuff to cover. So it's going to be over the course of several videos. We're going to cover a lot. If you've ever wanted to write your own web app, or maybe you already have your own web app and you want to deploy it to the cloud, figure out how that side of software development works, then this video series will be for you. I'm really excited. I'm a little nervous. This is going to be fun. I'm going to learn a lot along the way, I think, as well as you. So I hope that this will help some of you guys and gals learn a little bit about managing software applications and writing them, deploying them, all that good stuff. So like I said, the series is going to be, this is the introduction video. Welcome. And feel free to skip this video if you already have a good grasp on your development environment. What we're going to go over in this video is the tools that you'll need. So we'll go over and install all the things that we'll need to write our software. We're going to talk about them a little bit briefly and kind of get into a good spot to get started. The next video is going to be starting and scaffolding out our web application. I'll tell you right now that this is an opinionated series. There are a lot of different ways to do something. And when it comes to software, you could do something a million different ways. What I'm going to show you is going to be one or maybe a couple of different ways to do each thing that we go over. But just know that it's not the only way, and it's probably not the best way. So forgive me in advance. We're going to be learning together. I can promise you that. I'm going to try to upload these videos in batches that make sense. So we may do a few things at once, and so I might upload a couple at a time or more than a couple, depending on how much we want to cover and how much really belongs in one video. But yeah, this is going to be a longer running series. So I hope you enjoy and help me improve it over time. If you're following along with me, please comment some things that you're noticing and you want me to change to make the series better. Always happy to improve. You might be wondering why this is the backdrop. Well, we are at the computer today, so it's not going to be quite as pretty as usual. So yeah, without further ado, I guess let's get started. So you're actually going to watch me use this tool. Watch this. Oh, there we go. Okay. All right, so let's go over a couple of the assumptions that I've got about you as the viewer for this, if you're trying to follow along. So just so we're all on the same page here, I do think that it's necessary for you to have a little bit of familiarity with programming in general before we get started. This isn't going to be a super low-level, like, newbie-oriented course. I'm going to assume that you've got at least a little bit of experience using some of these tools. So some of those tools are going to be like the command line. We're going to be using that a lot. So having some familiarity with any programming language, really, we're gonna focus on some shell scripting and JavaScript in this series because that's a language that all the web developers learn. So you feel free to use whatever language you're comfortable with. All the tools in the series are going to be free, asterisk. For the most part, I'm gonna stick with things that are freely available. Like we're gonna use Git, GitHub, Sublime text editor. We're going to use the command line tools that come installed on our computers for the most part. The only time it'll really come into play when you'll need to be cognizant of cost is when we get to the cloud. This is an AWS focused series, so we're going to be using Amazon's web services, and they have some free options for some of the things we're going to use. Maybe you've already exhausted your free tier of Amazon, so it might end up costing you a little bit less than $1 if you just are spinning things up for testing purposes, but we'll get to that later, and maybe you don't even want to watch the series that far, so you might end up not spending a penny anyway. Okay, so we talked about the tools, talked about the assumptions that I've got of you, the viewer. I'm Kev the Dev. Let's get going. So first tool I mentioned is going to be Sublime Text Editor. So all the links to these tools are going to be in the box below in the description. Oh, we don't want to look at the band. So go ahead and download Sublime Text for whichever operating system that you're running. There's one for every version. Every major version, Linux, Mac, and Windows. So go ahead and download that and install that. And once it's done, then you should be able to see this and use that. So that's cool. Another tool that we're going to end up using is Git and Github. So if you don't already have a GitHub profile, go ahead and make one. And I forgot to mention all of the source code for this series, from the application code that we write to the infrastructure code that will be responsible for deploying stuff to the cloud when we get there later on. I'm going to keep it all in my GitHub profile. So feel free to access that if you like. I'll put a link to that as well in the description. So make a GitHub account to keep track of your code and your changes. We're going to be using Git a lot. You're also going to want to use, so if you're on Mac or Linux, then you don't need to do anything. But if you're on Windows, I highly recommend that you download something called Git Bash. It's a better command prompt than the one that comes built in. Yes, technically the command prompt that's built into Windows will run everything that we want, but the syntax is going to be different enough that I honestly would just rather write in shell or in bash shell. So go ahead and download Git Bash if you want to follow along closely if you're on Windows with me. If you're on Mac or Linux, then what I'm going to be writing is going to be what you're writing. So no need to do anything there. Just use your built-in terminal. So we're also going to be writing a web application, a simple one, but we're going to be using in this series Node.js. As I mentioned, we're going to be writing in JavaScript. So if you want to follow along, then I recommend you go ahead and download Node.js for whatever operating system you have. So go ahead and I would download the latest stable and go ahead and download that. Once that's done, we can open it up, accept the terms, choose where you want to install it. Yes, we're gonna let it install all of these different things. We need the Node Package Manager. NPM stands for Node Package Manager. Node Package Manager, Package Manager. Cool. Yes. This all looks good. Automatically install necessary tools. Yeah, sure. So we're going to go ahead and install that, which will let us actually run the Node server. Also, you might end up hearing my dog in the background of some of these videos. So that might just be a little guest appearance when he decides to squeak his toy. My apologies in advance. All right, yes, the script. Go ahead, install. Yes, install. On Mac, it'll look a little bit different. On Linux, you might end up using a package manager to install Node, like apt-get or yum. And again, if you have your own application that you are going to be developing alongside us, rather than using this one, then feel free to use whatever tools you're comfortable with. It will also help if you have a understanding of some basic networking infrastructure knowledge. So I'll post a couple links in the description below in case you don't know a whole lot about how network traffic works, how HTTP works, if you care. If you don't care, then don't worry about it. But I'm going to operate on the assumption that you understand a little bit about how that works. Any other tools that we may end up needing later on that I wasn't smart enough to think about right now, if they come up, I'll make sure to go over them and install them with you in the videos. So don't worry if in a few videos I end up referencing something new that we haven't talked about. I'll make sure to go over how to install that, at least at a high level. This is taking a while. While we're waiting for Node to download, just want to briefly go back over Git Bash. So I never actually installed it with you all. Git for Windows, I guess they've renamed it. No, they haven't. Okay, it's just one part of it now. I prefer to use the shell. So go ahead and download this. Yes, I've already got it downloaded, so I will download it again. But once you've downloaded it, then you're going to go through the motions here. I would leave it default. Also leave that. I also just leave it on the default for Git from the command line. Yes, OpenSSH or OpenSSL, sorry. And again, this is going to look a little different if you're on maybe an older version of Windows, or you've got an older version of Git Bash downloaded, but they're all pretty much the same. Yep, just leave it on the defaults, I think, for everything. Yep. Okay, so then I would not do that. Go ahead and hit install. I'm not going to because I've already done it. But once you're done installing, you should be able to open up a Bash window. See how Node is doing. Still going. And here we are. So now we've got a Bash window, and we can do typical Bash commands that we normally could not do in Windows shell. And all of you Mac and Linux people go right at home. We're just going to come back when Node is finished downloading. See you in a second. And we are back. I think all you had to do is actually press a button on the prompt, because as soon as I pressed something, it just finished. So now that we got Node downloaded, we should be able to try and invoke it. We should be able to use it in the command prompt. Let's do a quick test. So we can check and see what version of Node is installed on the system, Node-V. And we've successfully got 12.18.4, so that's good. Let's also make sure that we've got the npm, the Node Package Manager installed, because we're going to need that for installing Express, which is the JavaScript framework that we're going to use for our simple web app. So we'll do npm-v. Good, that's done. So we are pretty much good to go. I'm going to save the Express installation for the next video when we actually scaffold out a web app. We will also make a GitHub repository in our GitHub accounts and set up a local Git repository on our computers as well in the next video. All right, so this is the end of the introduction. We've got our Git tool installed, our shell installed for Windows. We have Node installed for scaffolding out a web app, which we'll need in the next video. We have our Sublime text editor installed so that we're all editing our files in the same window so that we're all familiar with it. I think we're good to go. Again, links to everything that I showed in this video are going to be in the description, and a few other helpful links for understanding some of what's going on will also be down there. I look forward to getting started for real. Please join me in the next video. I'm excited. All right, thanks everybody.